Okay, we're going to go ahead and start the content for remote learning guidelines for Real Essentials. We are a curriculum company, as you all know well, that teaches relationship education skills through activity-based learning. So as you can imagine, our staff, as well as yours, have been scrambling with innovation and strategies to not keep these important tools from students, knowing that we have a few different barriers to work with, and also that our ideal learning environment for any relationship content is in person, simply because relationships require personal interaction. We have no choice during this season to jump above some of the barriers. And in the meantime, we're learning a lot of things that we hope will benefit the learnings of remote education, both now and in the future. I wanted to begin by welcoming all of you and saying thank you for the efforts that your teams are making. I know people are working tirelessly right now to create a learning experience that is needed and that is acceptable for people. I do want to let you guys know, a couple of you are asking, is this being recorded? The answer is yes. We will be sending you this recording via email afterwards, and we also have a remote learning website that we put, or web page on our website that we put for your access, where any updates will be put live so that you guys have one place to go to get the curriculum updates from the developer. I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Lauren Reitzma. If you guys don't know me, I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Communications for CRE, and I help with a lot of the certification trainings and all of the different best practices for communication across the country. So I wanted to know, or I wanted to create a platform for all of you guys, as I've been getting questions. Our whole team has been bombarded with questions about what to do during this time, and we thought this would be the best way to get everybody together. There truly are people from across the country. We have over 150 of you registered for this call, and we cannot wait to equip you guys and get started. So I wanted to begin with the goal of our programming here. We are not looking to create more boundaries in having some structure around online learning. However, we really need to learn how to deliver quality relationship education while honoring three different things. First of all, we need to look at program fidelity. Many of you guys are working under federal grants and are required to teach a certain dosage and scope and sequence, and we really want to make sure that that gated in the online copyright that is protecting Real Essentials across the world. And we need to make sure that the people who put a lot of energy and effort into setting those up are, we're still honoring them as we move into an e-learning platform. And then lastly, there are a lot of trademark protections also for the Real Essentials brand when it comes to slides and worksheets and all of the different visuals. And so we have created and crafted some guidelines that we feel will allow you guys the freedom to deliver content while still protecting the things that our company has worked hard to create. I wanted to start with the trauma-informed approach and thinking about this digitally. Most of you guys, if you've been certified with Real Essentials, are very aware of our high priority at our agency to inform people about the guidelines that we want to protect kids' safety and recognize the trauma that we're experiencing or experience as a nation, as a culture in the classroom is still present in all of the households where you will have e-learning. So continue to recognize how trauma does affect the individuals involved in your classes, even if they're online. This next one, we want to make sure that you guys prepare to have a licensed professional on call, meaning that because we don't have a counselor that we can walk students to with a lot of confidence and say, hey, we saw indicators of trauma. One, you might not be seeing the indicators as easily because you're not in person. And we want to make sure that we don't teach any content at all that even is considered a gray area where we might be able to see some heightened risk for different violence or mental health considerations. So we want to be really cautious that before you do any programming, you refresh yourself on the trauma-informed approach and consider these changes and adaptations for the digital world. One of the best practices that we're trying to set up locally is a partnership with the counselors that still are working for each school and seeing if they have a digital or remote emergency line or FaceTime that they can connect with kids. We want to make sure we take every precaution to keep kids safe. So we do have some allowable activities that you're allowed to do online, and we want to go over those. Again, these are all available on the web page that we've created, but I'm going to give some context that hopefully will be helpful for you guys. First of all, we are going to enable you guys to teach Real Essentials in a live online learning platform, which means that you have to have a platform that is protected and that is reputable and that is approved by each district. And we want each class to be live, meaning please do not record yourself and send video content that people can get caught up on. Please don't record any of the content in your screen. I'm going to go over the don'ts in a second, but any live platform, we don't endorse one in particular, but many of you guys have had access to the ones that their districts are using if e-learning is allowable, and make sure that you know take some time to educate yourself on all of the different frameworks and the technology behind those platforms. We're going to talk about safety in those platforms in a second. We will allow you within this live platform to share your screen, meaning you can share the slides just like I'm doing now with your students, and they can obviously see you during this. So we want to make sure that when you're sharing your screen, it's Real Essentials trademarked content only, and please guard your desktop of any personal stuff that may sneak out into the world there. And also, just a best practice, it's always good to do a dry run with your screen if you're going to share it. Make sure that the right folders are open and files are open, because oftentimes what you share does not actually translate into what you think you're sharing. So just practice as we're all getting used to these different things. And then also we want you guys to have access to our internally created e-learning modules, which we'll be talking about in a second. These are password protected on a platform that we have found to be safe for copyright and different outside users getting access to them, but we have a few different learnings ourselves as trying to take a curriculum that has never been e-learning platform based and put it together for you guys in a very short turnaround time is quite the challenge, but our team has been amazing. I can't wait to share the amazing things that they've come up with. So here are the things that we actually would ask you not to do when we say red light adaptations. I'm going to go ahead here and stop the video so you guys can see this. So the first thing is, please do not send worksheets or slides electronically in any capacity. We don't want you scanning. All of the copyright protections still remain. We want you guys to be able to utilize some of the concepts on the worksheets and the slides in that live learning platform, but we strongly believe that you can still get the objective across for the lessons that you choose without compromising our slide copyrights. I will say we've had some creative conversations around the country. If you already have a pre-printed workbook, or you've been interrupted during this COVID experience and you've started the scope and sequence, if your students have the workbooks at home, or you've already distributed information in your classrooms, you can certainly use the slides, or excuse me, the worksheets that they have in hand. We had one organization that had a great idea about delivering packets to the school where they had safe pickups for students to get materials. So if you were prepping them at your office in a safe way and kids can come and pick them up, that is a way you can still have the worksheets, but we're really going to ask you to not scan, send, or email any of our content electronically. Again, as a reminder, please don't record any of your sessions, even if it is a catch-up or kids don't log in. If they're not there on the live platform, we need them to, they probably won't be able to get the content. So that just gives you guys a good opportunity for accountability for any type of online registration or attendance sheets. The way that you guys are doing that is something to consider. We're going to ask that you don't teach hands-on lessons, which require the activity to get the objective. And knowing that almost 100% of Real Essentials is hands-on, what we mean by this is there's some examples that come to the top of my mind. For example, swapping juices, or the paper bag hot potato, anything that has an activity where without doing it in person, you really can't get the objective across. We have so many different units and different flexibilities around how you can teach different lesson objectives. So we're asking you to maybe consider ones that don't have worksheets, but more discussion around them and more conceptual learning, because it would really compromise the objectives if we teach lessons virtually that just are not designed to be virtual. And then lastly, we're going to ask that if you do teach this sexual health unit and you're familiar with the intro SRA slide script that we typically kick off in our certification trainings, we want to ask you not to teach that content virtually. There's so much context in there that's missing with a screen that has a high risk for misinterpretation of the messaging. So please do not teach that lesson as a slide script in your presentations. We wanted to give you guys access for printing out all of these learnings for either teams that you're training, your facilitator teams who aren't on this particular webinar, or if you're working with a federal project officer or specialist, or if you're somebody who needs permission from a district. This is just a really good thing you guys can grab directly from our website, download it in a PDF format, print it out, and then you can distribute this for people to know what you're allowed to do, and even keep it as a reminder so that your facilitators know exactly what the developer's guidelines are for teaching online. One thing I did want to say about the project officer oversight is that we are teaching you guys some best practices from a developer's lens. But if you are working or operating under a federal or local grant, your project officer has ultimate authority over your program fidelity, and we want to make sure that they are the ones that are giving you permissions. We want to give you as much guidance as possible and support your grantees, but we want to respect ultimately the project officer's guidelines as they're working really hard in DC and also locally to make sure that all of these learnings are in line with what they're required to report as well. So be sure to make them the authority in any of your teaching decisions when it comes to dosage or allowable e-learning platforms. Let's take a minute and talk about safety. This is so very important. We want to ask you guys to set a password as a necessity when it comes to using e-learning platforms. Many of you guys may have heard about some of the Zoom bombing that's happening, or the frustrating people that are coming in and putting inappropriate messages and or images in the middle of e-learning platforms. We really don't want to put your students or you at risk of that happening, and the best way to do that is to utilize a password. And don't share the password on social media. I know social media is a great way to get in touch with adolescents right now, but that's a really easy way for the password to lose all of its protections. We also want you guys to limit screen sharing to the host only. Kids and students should not have the power to share what's on their computers. You guys can easily prevent them from doing so by taking the role of a host, and when you set that up, also clicking any of the administrative buttons that say that the host is the only one who has the capacity to share their screen. And then another best practice for safety is if you have the capacity to enable a waiting room, many of these e-platforms have that, meaning that kids can't get into your platform unless you see them register and come through. You guys can learn a little bit more about this. There's a lot of great best practices and opportunities online as you search the technology platforms and learn some of their tutorials. But we want to make sure that you guys have every access to safety first, and these are 3 best practices for doing that. So many of you guys have asked about this. When and how and what does it mean to utilize an e-learning platform that you guys create? I am excited to share that after this call, you guys will also be getting a couple attachments in addition to the recording of this webinar. And one of those is going to be a prototype preview of a full module that we've created internally. The one that we've chosen to showcase is the personality styles, which many of you are familiar with. We have Josh Sosa and Chip Albertson, who are two of our amazing speakers internally. They work full-time for the Center for Relationship Education and have access to over 3,500 students a year here locally in Denver. And they have given you guys a gift in recording themselves. We had our team put them together in a professional platform. They're in an office setting, and we actually gamified or actually put a user interface with the worksheets so that the students are actually clicking their screen and taking the personality profile in an online platform rather than using the worksheets. And then at the end, we can put these learnings together. And if you guys do have a chat room feature or an e-learning situation where not everybody is on at the same time to get the information, you can have this opportunity where they can watch the information ahead of time or as homework, or even during your e-learning platform, Google Chat Room or Zoom call. And then you can, as a facilitator, discuss takeaways, best practices, applications, personalization for their community. We wanted to create a platform that you guys have consistency with, program fidelity, and also something that is professional and that you guys have absolute confidence in the technology of it. I will say, as we're developing this, it has been a rapid cycle, which means that we haven't had as much time to beta test what's happening, but we are going to invite a few of you guys at the end of this webinar to receive a beta test application where we will actually partner with you if you have a site across the country where you're willing to look at how the interface works with students live and help us navigate any of the hiccups or the things that might be confusing. We want to make this the easiest platform for anyone to use. I will say that we've recorded a scope and sequence that has quite a robust selection of overlap lessons, including personalities, my whole self, love versus infatuation, how do you feel loved, strong foundation, steps of physical intimacy, physical differences, which is that roles versus biology outline, and then relationship red flags. So these are the scope and sequence for the e-learning modules. As you can imagine, there's not the capacity or the platform to record every one of our lessons, knowing that we have over 125 just in starting point and advance alone. But we would ask that if you are looking at utilizing this, that you could integrate it very seamlessly into the scope and sequence that you've already agreed upon with your district or your after-school program. So I'm going to take a minute here and ask you guys to utilize the chat room and make sure that you can type in a question or two. I'm going to answer as many of these as possible on this call, and really we wanted the majority of this call to be your Q&A, but please note if something comes up while you get started or if you get overwhelmed by something you misunderstood, please utilize our resources and our staff to help answer those questions. So I wanted to first, there are a couple questions coming in. I'm going to actually give you guys just a few more minutes as they populate here. Okay, so to clarify, the restriction against SRA slide script, does it restrict all of Unit 9? Actually, it does not. That's a great question. We're just asking that that introductory slide script is not being used because we want to make sure that you are not taking that out of context. I will say that there are quite a few in the sexual health unit. Steps of Intimacy, for example, is one we already have that great video recording content for you guys, and you can use the placards and teach it just like you would. Be careful with what is required for parent permissions and make sure that you guys know what you want to do with your scope and sequence to make sure that that trauma-informed piece is there, but you are allowed to teach other lessons from the sexual health unit. We're just asking that you don't teach that slide script. I did want to put voice to one of the comments that came through that if you're feeling disappointed about not being able to video yourself, We understand that not everybody has a live platform, but that is the workaround that we have created for if you need to use pre-recorded video, we're going to ask you guys to use our content. There are many, many things that are hard to understand and frustrating, but we cannot, we have a lot of program fidelity oversight that we can't monitor with video recordings. And also when it's on video and it's in the household of students and there's no oversight or an evaluator in the classroom, it also puts kids at higher risk. So I would love to honor that frustration and talk with any of you guys if this feels disappointing, but we are working as a curriculum company and we have some of our own boundaries that we have to honor with that. So thank you so much for understanding. Do you intend to release any additional e-learning modules for any of the units? We are not certain, as many of us are learning together. We have no end date for this COVID experience, and many of our districts have been closed for the rest of the year. So we are going to be looking at the data that we collect from this process and determine if e-learning is still something that we want to move forward with. As an agency, it is a high value that when possible, we always want face-to-face interaction. That will never change with Real Essentials because relationships just cannot thrive exclusively with a screen. Many of you guys are experiencing this even in this pandemic. It is nice to have technology, but it just is not the same as being face-to-face and teaching people communication skills in interacting with human beings. Okay, a couple more here. Can we show the videos online, Steps of Intimacy and Crowded Bed? Yeah, if you have access to a live platform, and during that platform, the screen that you share is one of the videos from our website, meaning the Steps of Intimacy video or the Crowded Bed or the Relationships DUI. There are a lot of different video clips within our branded and marketed visual support for you guys. We absolutely would encourage you guys to use those tools we provided. We're just asking that you don't email those videos out, again, outside of a live platform for the sake of copyright and trademark protection. Do you have a recommendation about class sizes? So I would say typically the best class size doesn't change whether it's virtual or in person. It's really difficult to do anything, over 30 kids is a nightmare. I think you could do something really powerful with a group as small as 3 to 5. So I would say if you do have large class sizes, you're trying to teach hundreds of kids at a time, it may behoove you to see if there's a way to segment those classes and send separate links to different groups. If your only opportunity is to do a lot at a time, you're going to have to work pretty hard to establish some norms. As you know, adolescents love seeing themselves online and changing their backgrounds and asking distracting questions. And so we want to set you guys up for the best success. And if you're looking for discussion, we're going to probably advise that anything between maybe 10 and 20 students is ideal. But if you have a little bit of a larger class, you could probably work with that. So the videos you have recorded, we can use those for a presentation. Absolutely. If you want to use that as your presentation as a whole, that's why we're hoping to design something that's easy for you guys. And we want you guys to know that the video option that we provide is not time sensitive to a live distribution because it's password protected in a platform that we have purchased as an agency to share with you guys. So please know that if you're feeling frustrated by the time restrictions, the e-learning that we're providing may actually help you with that because you can ensure that kids can watch those at any time, and then you can maybe discuss the takeaways in a live chat room if that's something that's available to you. But we know in many districts here, at least locally, every school is doing it differently, and some students don't have any access to live teaching. So if that's the case, the e-learning platform is not restrictive to a live time or audience. Okay, if someone has a creative way to replicate a hands-on experience in a lesson, are you open to hearing about it and integrating that? We're always open to hearing about things. As an agency, it is really important that we consider the research that's gone into Real Essentials, and we're not making stuff up on the fly. So I would ask you guys if that is, if that idea pertains to you, that you would model that with us and make sure that you have written approval from the developer before just adapting and flexing how we teach things. There's a lot of liability and program fidelity at stake for people just trying to replicate a lesson how they think might work. We know that there are a lot of creative ideas out there, and we are in it with you, but we also have to have fidelity controls around what is research-based and also what we know is appropriate in the messaging. So if that is something that you'd like to explore, we are open to hearing ideas always. We want to keep moving forward, but please don't take that liberty without the oversight and approval from the curriculum developer. So we're hearing a lot of our live sessions are recorded due to district policies. What do we do about that if the district requires that they're recorded? I would probably set a scope and sequence up and connect with us if this is you, and see how many of our recordings are available to meet that scope and sequence. If you need curriculum developer reasoning or oversight, unfortunately we don't have the power to change district rules, but we are not willing to bend our necessary copyright rules for the sake of something that is person to person. So we want to be sure that, again, we do our best here and we recognize the frustrations. We're in it. I keep saying that we're in it together. We're a team. We want to support you guys. However, we also need we need understanding and mutual what's the word I'm looking for? I want you guys to know that as an agency, we are not, again, I'm going to go back to our goal. We're not trying to make this hard. However, COVID hopefully will not be our forever future, and we can't put our content at risk for a couple weeks period of time, no matter how important the content feels. We have to work within these guidelines as a team. So I'm with you. I wish that we had the power to let everybody record, but there's just no oversight in program fidelity or making sure that the messages are succinct if we don't have some of those checks and balances. So there aren't many lessons that are just discussion lessons. So what would you do as far as the worksheets if people can't be dropped off? Here's an idea. If you guys have a comp book, or give students the materials list of a blank piece of paper and a pen and a marker. And for example, if you're doing basic needs of the heart and you don't have the heart with the 1 to 10, just say as an instructor, I want you to draw a heart on your paper and then number the sides 1 to 10. Now fill that up and then read some of the dialogue from your worksheet directly to the students and have them capture their learnings or answer the questions on their notepad. The designs of our worksheets are great. We really have done everything to try and package it, but honestly, we know that the objectives can be reached simply with the content, and believe that you guys can craft or structure some of the questions from your worksheets that you're looking at as an instructor and help get the kids to have those worksheets there. I will say that every one of the e-learning platforms that we develop will have the worksheet interaction for the students, and even some quizzes and takeaways that they'll be able to do. You'll be able to see this on the demo on their screen. So our hope is that you'll be able to have enough content to work through without worksheets and still get the takeaway. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm reading a couple more here. Would you recommend 2 educators partner to deliver an online session? Absolutely. this is not only a recommendation, but maybe a requirement if you're doing a grant, because you still have to do program oversight and facilitator observation. And so if you're the only person in the room, one, there is a lot more liability because there's not another adult observing you. And two, sometimes the technology can feel overwhelming or you're clicking around. So just to have kind of that tech partner, or even to demonstrate some of the communication things, having two people there that are hosts can help enable some conversation and get you guys more of a user-friendly experience. So this is a great suggestion. There's a district that is finding some success where rather than going through the whole school to sign up for the Real Essentials classes, they're going to ask districts for an opportunity to maybe get family buy-in, family to family, or different smaller groups of individuals rather than whole schools. This might help you with some of the preventative district requirements and still getting the information into the homes. That's a great idea. Okay. Are we able to show your videos and record our own questions and breakdowns? So that is it. I think what I'm hearing, and if this is you and it's wrong, please, I'm going to paraphrase this and make sure I check in. So I hear you saying you want to use the e-learning platform that we've created and then record yourself with some questions or homework assignments or things like that. As long as you're recording questions that are maybe assignment driven or hey, instructions, and you're not recording content, I believe that we could look at a way to set that up for you with success. If you wouldn't mind making a note to email me and talking offline, I'd want to make sure that you had all the support that you needed and make sure I'm clearly understanding that. Okay, so some of you guys are asking about when the timeline for the lessons are going to be available. We are working hard to create the lessons that are usable as fast as we can, but without any barriers and IT problems. And so our hope is to release small, maybe sets of 2 or 3 lessons at a time, and we are already testing this locally and hope to have these available to you in just the smallest amount of time that we can offer without major technical glitches. So stay tuned on that. That's one that I want to be careful about putting a promise there that we aren't sure we can honor with the beta testing, but please know that the process of putting these professional videos together can take a long time, and our team again has worked like crazy to do it within just a few weeks. So we're going to have them to you as soon as we possibly can. Can we show the videos to Facebook for live watching with participants? This actually is not a permissible activity because Facebook is not a platform that's protected from, it's actually designed to reach the millions and multiple and global, and anyone can access that. If there are some privacy settings that you can set up with students, we can look into that, but there's a lot more caution that we have to put on the Facebook and social media platforms, not only for distribution of content, but also for safety of the students. So if you are considering that as an option, also please connect with us and we will work with you one-on-one to make sure that we can have we can be as accommodating as we can. Somebody has asked if there's a charge for the e-learning. Absolutely not. This is a free service that we are giving you as certified educators. If you're on this call, you are in our system as somebody who's been trained or has purchased the curriculum, and therefore we do not in any way need money from you to be able to utilize this. That's not our heart at all. So you guys can have those e-learning modules as a part of our services through certification. Thanks for bearing with me as I make sure I didn't miss anything. A couple more coming through. Oh, that's a nice one. Thank you for all your hard work. We want to thank you guys. I know being in education is really challenging right now, and teachers across the country, including you, are working with the best interests of students in mind. This is not an easy situation. We acknowledge that there's every emotion along the way, and we really just appreciate you guys so much and want to do our best to make this work and workable. And we do recognize that there may be some things we just have to land on as a no. Our heart, I'm learning even personally in our own homes that when expectations don't meet your reality, there are true disappointments. And this doesn't, especially for those of you guys who have been putting your scope and sequence and trainings together for so long, this is not what we could have expected or would have wanted. And if you need any other support from us, we're in it together as a team. So please reach out. I believe there are lots of you on this call and many, many questions. I think I got to most of the ones that are there, and I want to honor time. I am going to remind you of the things that we're going to send as a response, or in response to this email. There'll be a recording of the webinar. There will also be a link to preview one of the e-learning platforms that we're putting together for you guys to test that. And there'll be an application for organizations that may want to be a part of our beta tests for the e-learnings and help us learn what is going on from your sites. We're doing a lot locally here, but we want to make sure that nationally and internationally, anything that we launch is easy to use and easy to understand. And so your help in those beta tests would be greatly appreciated, and we'd love to surround you guys with a tech support team as we do this before we make everything available without nerves that it'll be hard. We want everything to be easy for you guys as much as we can. If anybody did miss this webinar, we would ask that you share the recording with them, and as always, we are here to serve you and help you. Please reach out with continued questions. We've been excited to connect with you guys in the midst of this pandemic. I'm going to go ahead and close this out formally and wish you all well, and ask that you guys continue to use relationship education skills in your own homes, with your children, with your partners, with your neighbors, and stay well, honor each other, and stay in touch.